Hi, I'm Tara from the Marathon Mates. Welcome to episode number 37 of the Flying RuNR. On this episode, we are going to recap the Tokyo Marathon and celebrate Tony's awesome 6-star achievement. Are you ready to run? Let's go.
Welcome to the thrilling world of the Flying RuNR, brought to you by the Marathon Mates.
Everyone, and welcome back to the Flying RuNR Podcast. On this episode, we are recapping the Tokyo Marathon, which was being run last Sunday. As our regular listeners would know, Tony and his beautiful wife Sharon completed their 6-star major marathon journey in Tokyo. It's been awesome sharing some of the journey with you guys, and it was even more awesome to follow you on race day and track you through the streets of Tokyo. Tony, firstly, how's the jet lag? And secondly, have you come off your high yet from your 6-star medal?
Well, I'm just for those people watching on video, I'm just sharing the spoils of victory, the Tokyo Marathon medal, and of course the 6-star medal. Jet lag's good because we had a day of travel Sunday, and time zones are pretty much in line. I think we were 1 hour ahead or behind one of those two. So jet lag's not a big thing. It's just any sort of travel day is usually a tiring day. So Sharon and I got in this morning and just pretty much had a very quiet, light, lax day. And it's good to get home, but the holiday was pretty amazing as well, and no doubt I'll share little snippets of that as we go through. As for the high of the 6-star medal, I'm not quite sure of the actual numbers, but I was led to believe there were 2,600 6-star medalists or potential medalists in Tokyo again. Tokyo always seems to have the big ones, doesn't it? So
because I think the last 2 years they've had COVID cancellations, or 3 years they had COVID cancellations. So all those who were waiting have waited a long time for their 6-star.
Yeah, so I'm not quite sure. The official numbers haven't come out, and no doubt once again I'll be sharing some of the stats that are currently available, but they may change because there seems to be a delay in getting some of the stuff through to Abbott's from Tokyo. But, the highs are pretty good, and now we've just got to sort of work through. We haven't run since the Tokyo Marathon, just enjoyed the holiday, and now it's about probably trying to get a run in tomorrow and just see how we feel. So, but
Excellent.
Welcome back. Yeah, it's good to be back.
Absolutely. It sounds fantastic, and I can't wait to get into that a bit more further down the track. So I guess we better introduce the other half of Team Alice Running. Tim, what is it now, about 4 weeks till Boston? Is that right? I don't know. I just let you do what you do, and I just follow the lead and go with it. Do you want to let everyone know how our training's going?
Yep. So from when this episode drops, Tara, it's 4 weeks to go till Boston. But before I do that, Tony, that shiny 6-star medal looks really good hanging around your neck. Definitely looks really good. Look how big that is, Tara.
It's I don't know where they're going to fit the 7th. It might be a little thing that clips onto it or something. I'm not sure what they're going to do there, but there was a lot of talk, as you would imagine, about the potential 7th star, and a lot of people have different thoughts and ideas, and it's going to be a very interesting year when all of that comes to fruition, I'd imagine. So,
yeah. No, I agree. I think there's a lot of discussion to go ahead and nobody really knows. But for us, big news this week, we did our 400th each park runs. So 400 for Tara and 400 for me, which is not an official milestone at parkrun, but it is a big milestone. 400 parkruns equates to 2,000 parkrun kilometres run in intervals of 5 kilometres at a time. So it's a lot of running. It's a lot of Saturdays, so that equates to about 8 years of actual park running. In addition to that, I think, I've done 63 volunteers, and I think, Tara, you're up around 75 or 80 volunteers or thereabouts.
Lots of volunteers.
Yeah, so really, really big effort, and it was good that we had many of our friends turn up to come and cheer us on and be there. I guess the other thing we're building up our long runs. We're getting to the peak of our training now. So we did our 30K long run on the weekend just been as well. It was really interesting because it was gale force winds. We had sort of 50, 70 kilometre hour winds buffeting us. So we'd run out with the wind behind us and we'd run back straight into the headwind all the way back 15 kilometres into a headwind. On top of that, we had king tides. So where we run is on the coast, and the king tides are the highest tides of this year. So they were splashing right up against the edge of the footpath we run along, and we're getting covered in salt and sea spray and waves crashing into the side of us as we're running. So it was really quite horrendous conditions, but at the same time, we got through it, and both of us at the end of the 30Ks said, can we keep running? We felt really good. We felt like we could have kept running. We wouldn't, but we felt like we could have knocked out the marathon without too many struggles yesterday. We just felt really good with it. So the body's responding to all the training, and it's in a good space, 4 to 5 weeks out from Boston. So we're feeling really good.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Great to hear. 30K park runs. It's all still happening. Yeah. What are you now? Is it 5 weeks?
4 when this episode drops. So 4 to 5 weeks out. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. So one more long run, and then we can start to sort of taper it down a bit from there. So we've got a 32K run coming up, and look at Tara. She's like, oh my God, but it is just one more long run. That's all it is.
I don't know. This part of my life just feels like a blur on marathon training. I just follow him. He just says we're running. I don't even ask how far we're going. I just follow him. Yep.
It's only an extra 7 minutes longer out next week and an extra 7 minutes longer back. That's all it is. So,
wow.
So, Tony, what's next for you? I'm supposing you're obviously taking a bit of a break from running, but we've got Gold Coast coming up, so you can't take too long of a break.
Yeah, well, we do have Gold Coast coming, but Sharon's contemplating stepping back from that at this moment. When you do the sums, we've done 3 marathons in 3 months ultimately. So we did Berlin September, 3 in 6 months. So Berlin, Chicago, and Tokyo all within that period. And I think Sharon's feeling it. So she's talking about dropping down to the half at Gold Coast. I don't know how that's going to go because both races are sold out from what I can understand. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, we are going to have a bit of a break from long runs, I guess, more so than anything else. So I just want to try and get some speed work done around the 3 and the 5, and just try and really nut through that. Work on a couple of form issues or that I still have. But yeah, I'm not quite sure when our next race will be. I still want to have a crack at Gold Coast, and when I say a crack, I think I've got a 5:20 that I want to try and hunt down, and Sharon does too. But there's not much point doing it based on current form and the way Sharon's feeling. So potentially, we may miss Gold Coast, but then that'll mean we've got Sydney as our next big race. And I think we're doing the half in Brisbane. So that's something else in June, I think. So, yeah, so we've still got a full-on year. But, yeah, it'd be good to do a couple of little short runs and not have to worry about anything over a half at this stage. So.
Yeah, and I think it's good to have things booked in for future races. As we've talked about in the past, you can come off those 6-star majors. Not that Tara and I have been there yet, but listening to Terry Frew and others who are then on a bit of a lull afterwards because they haven't had something to aim for. So having races booked in, even if they're half marathons, having Sydney in the future and New York towards the end of the year, it's important that you keep those goals going, I guess, and keep working towards them.
Very much so, very much so. Talking with Kim Tudjman while we're in Tokyo, of course, Kim and Stephen both fulfilled their 6 stars in Tokyo. And also interesting because Kim was a bit dirty that with the fast 6, she was a bit dirty with herself, and because the best running advice ever given to her was, she said, I just went blank, Tony. I just went blank. She said, but what I meant to say and what I want to say, and which is what I'll share now to our listeners and our viewers, is that Kim's best advice she was ever giving is that racing is the best form of training.
Yes.
And it's so true. If you can book into those halves and as part of your training block to go into something bigger, I think it's always a great way to be training when you're racing in big groups. So, yeah, just another little something. And the interesting thing for you guys, and this is, I mentioned 2,600 6-star potential finishes. I'm not quite sure where they're currently sitting at the moment. They're still sorting through some stuff at Tokyo. But when you look at the big races last year, the 6 majors, you look at Boston had 683 6-star finishes in 2023. And that's often one of the last ones that people do because it's a tough one to get in. Tokyo had just over 3,000, 3,002, and we all know they had a number of years where they just didn't have it because of COVID. Berlin, 37. Chicago was 96. London was 371. The New York Marathon, and this is, if this holds true again for you guys, it is going to be an incredible experience because last year there were only 15 6-star finishes at New York.
Wow.
Yep.
So, and that is next level. Like, you will be treated like kings and queens, and no disrespect to the people in the Abbott's tents, but by the time they got through to Sharon and I, they had a big day. Putting medals on 2,000, at least 2,500 people. And Sharon and I would have been probably one of their last ones. So, and no disrespect, it was still a great potential, but it was still a great experience. But when you're one of 15, I could imagine they're all going to be waiting and tracking and all of this sort of stuff. So you have got something to look forward to, I think. So
it'll be awesome. We can't wait.
And I guess one of the things that I want to talk to you about, and I'll ask it later on, is more about how many couples have done the 6-star together. So that's one of the things I want to ask you about later on. But before we get into the news, I have noticed in the last couple of weeks that our news soundtrack hasn't been coming across. Apologies. Please just listen through. If you hear a blank space, just keep listening. We are here. And yeah, we're going to play the news now. So
let's hope it goes through, and if not, I'll try and edit it in. I just haven't had the time to sort of look at that, so apologies to everyone. So.
Thanks, Tony. As we always do, we're going to have a look around the world of running now. There's been some really good things happening this week. So, Tim, I'll let you have a chat about that.
No worries. You've given me good things happening this week, and the first thing I'm going to be talking about is, unfortunately, a runner who collapsed at Tokyo Marathon, who subsequently passed away in hospital after the event. And it's absolutely tragic. I guess our thoughts and prayers go to the runner and his grieving family. But unfortunately, this happens quite frequently in this sport that we love, this great sport that we love. And I know, Tara, you and myself, we've seen this a number of times out there. And I know, Tony, you've seen it as well. So it is unfortunate. But again, our thoughts and prayers do go out to this individual who collapsed about halfway through the race in Tokyo last weekend. And I'd just like to point out, it's the volunteers on the course that are usually the first responders. It's usually them who are calling up emergency assistance. And there's also probably some runners that gave up their race to respond to the individual as well, to help that individual. So, it affects a lot of people out there, but hopefully all those people are okay after dealing with that. it's quite sad and tragic. Did you see or notice any of that when you were there, Tony?
There was a runner that around the time of our finish collapsed at around the 40k mark, so about 2k's left, and there was a lot of concern expressed by people. He was in very capable hands. It was a good part of the course. There was a lot of volunteers towards the last couple of kilometers, so there was some expression of concern because this particular person wasn't in a good space, but didn't see anyone outside of that hearsay, and so I was quite shocked that someone had actually passed away at the Tokyo Marathon. And as you say, it is really, really quite sad, but beautiful running conditions on the day. So it can happen to the best of us. You just never know when it's not going to be your day. So yeah, very sad.
That old adage, I guess you can't always control all those things, but listen to your body. If your body's telling you it wants to quit and give up, don't keep pushing it. Do listen to your body. And I guess other tragic news out there at the moment. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago here in Australia, there's a lady called Samantha Murphy who went missing while going running in the bush down near Ballarat in Victoria, in southern Australia. Unfortunately, she's still missing, but the good news is there has been an arrest made over the last couple of days. An individual has been charged with her murder. So I guess hopefully for her family, that brings some closure. But at the same time, hopefully this individual assists the police to be able to help them find her body and help bring this to a close. But again, as we discussed last time when we had Jen Kellett on, it brings that issue around protection of women, and we've just had International Women's Day last week as well, and it really brings to their attention the risks, I guess, for women and the things that women have to think about. I know we've talked about it before, but Tara, you're always conscious of what's around you at all times, and it's just a crappy world when we live in when people can't go for a run, whether you're male or female, because you're scared for your own safety, but particularly females. Hopefully they can close that for her family and bring her home and lay her to rest. But yeah, that's good news, but at the same time, still tragic news. Changing it to some happier news, I guess. Joan Benet Samuelson. I don't know if people really remember her or not, but she was the inaugural winner of the Olympic marathon back in the LA Olympics in 1984. She's a legend in the game and has set her. Here's the thing. She has gone for 5 decades in a row at sub 3 hour pace. So she's recorded a sub 3 hour time over 5 decades through the 70s, 80s, 90s, noughts, and teens. Well, she just in Tokyo at 66 years of age ran a time of 3 hours 38:37 to win her age group in Tokyo. So now, if you remember Jen Kellett, she ran Tokyo last year and she was in that same age category and was the winner of that age category as well. So if Jen, you're listening to this today on this podcast, you've had your time or your position this year won by somebody who was an absolute legend of the game. So pretty awesome runner, and she's now claimed her 6-star medal as a result of that time in Tokyo. So that's good news. Now, she wasn't the fastest of the masters categories out there. There was a lady who was in the 61 to 65 age group who clocked a time of 3 hours and 1 minute. And she was the fastest of the masters, I guess, in the women's division. 3 hours and 1 minute in Tokyo. Her name is Mariko Ugeta. I'm not sure of her nationality, but I'm thinking probably Japanese. So pretty quick times. And as we discussed with Jen Kellett, it doesn't really matter how old you are. Everyone's still capable of running fast, even in their later stages of their age. So pretty awesome. And I guess the last little bit of news too, something for the dog owners out there, and Tara and I, we're dog people, and we would have loved this a few years ago for our little dog. But Strava has now opened up accounts for dogs, and you can now set up a dog account with Strava. Strava's partnered with a smart dog collar brand called Fee, which allows Strava to log a dog's distance traveled, the number of steps taken, their pace, as well as many other metrics, which are similar to what you'd get off a smartwatch. So it'd be interesting at the end of it, because Strava has capabilities to be able to DM. They've just recently done that, direct message people, and now they're saying it's the new Tinder where people are direct messaging one another and trying to hook up after a run. It'll be interesting if the dogs start DMing each other and setting up doggy dates with one another. But
Wow.
that's an interesting concept. So if you do run with your dog, you could probably set up a Strava account for your dog and get all the metrics coming through if you have this smart dog collar brand called Fi.
Wow.
So there you go.
Thanks for that news, Tim. That's something actually I would buy. So yeah. Now we're going to get into the fun part of the show tonight, and I can see Tony is actually drinking. He calls it lemonade out of a wine glass, but I'm thinking he's actually celebrating.
Yeah, this is now I'm onto the dry ginger ale. So it does look like a nice glass of wine, but no, it is soft drink. I can attest to that. So
oh, very, very good. So let's talk about the elites, apart from Tony and Sharon, of course, and Kim and Steve. We've got some other elites that were in there. They did not go anywhere near as close as what we thought it was going to be for the elites to be winning this. Now, Eliud Kipchoge came not even close to being in the top three, which was amazing. We had Benson Kipruto. He had a new course record for Tokyo as well, and that was at 2:02.16. And it was his PB as well. We've got Timothy Kiplegat. He was 2:02.55. That was a PB for him. And Vincent Kipdemoy.
Negedic.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, Negedic.
2:04.18, and that was a PB for him. Now, Eliud, who I still call the GOAT, don't care what anyone else says, he came in at 2:06.50. So he wasn't really that far behind, but 4 minutes puts him in 10th place. Yeah. What's happening there with Kipchoge? Anyone got some news for me that maybe I'm just sort of seeing a downhill spiral, or are we?
I haven't seen anything come out officially from Kipchoge or his training team, and we probably won't. I don't know if you heard anything in Tokyo, Tony.
No, it was quite a surprise for starters, and it was really quite surreal because we're on the bus back to after the marathon, and we caught the bus with someone who's relatively well known here in Australia called the Brick Man. So, and his first initial thing was that he was informing the group of us at the back that Eliud was a DNF, and I went, oh my God, truly? And then he said, oh no, he's there, he's 10th, because he hadn't seen him in the top 6. He had assumed it was a DNF, but then he saw him in 10th space. So, and no, there were no real whispers. I think the biggest thing that came out of it was the fact that he finished the race. They went, from what I can understand, I haven't watched the whole race. I've watched snippets of it, and they went out on world record pace. He lost one of his paces at 16K, which I'm not sure what sort of impact that then has on someone's mindset if one of their paces drop off. I actually haven't watched. There's that middle part of the race where he started to fall back. So I've watched up until about that 16, 17K where he's still in the lead pack. And then I watched another segment that picked it up at 25K where he dropped back. So something had obviously gone wrong. And he just said, sometimes you have good days, sometimes you have the bad days. And I think the integrity of Eliud made sure that he finished, which I think is a really important thing. And from what you could see at the end, he was picking up some people as he's coming in towards the finishing line. So you could still see the competitive spirit there. So I think he was at 11th or 12th at one stage, and he ended up coming in 10th. So he did pick up a couple of people, a couple of paces as he's coming into the finish line. But it'd be a brave man to ride him off, that's for sure.
No.
So
I'll give you my theory, I guess, as well, because I saw the same sort of footage, I guess. I saw him run to 15Ks. I knew they were on world record pace at that time. The pack was going well. And either he wasn't feeling it on the day quite right, and he probably had a strategy of he would have had a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. So a plan A would have been go out and go world record pace, and if you can keep going, go for it. Plan B would have been go for the win, and plan C would have been if anything's in any shape, form, or whatever going to niggle you or cause you an upset, just pull the pace back because you don't want to upset yourself for the Olympics. So I suspect that it was probably more of the plan C. He went out at record pace, and something, whether it was a gut issue, whether it was a muscle issue, whether it was just a mental issue, whatever it was, he's just pulled the pace back. Because I looked at him towards the end there at about 38 Ks, and when you saw his stride pattern and the way he runs, it was obvious that he'd just pulled the pace right back and he was just cruising through it. Now, I say cruising through, he did a 2:06, but his stride length and his turnover, his legs. It was somebody who obviously he looked like he was still in control. He looked like he was still comfortably doing it, but he'd backed it off considerably. So maybe it was just part of a training plan. Go in there, see how you feel. If you're not feeling right, just back it off because the Olympics is coming up and it's not that far away. And don't do anything to jeopardize the Olympics. And I think that was it. If it wasn't an Olympic year and he wasn't going for a record third gold medal, he probably would have pushed harder and blown himself up. But because it was an Olympic year, I think he backed right off. And I think that's what it was.
Yeah, I think the challenge now is that potentially he could miss the Kenyan team because that based on, once again, you'd be a brave Olympic committee not to pick him. But I think that could be a potential threat that he actually misses the Olympic teams. The Kenyans are just...
He's still the fastest Kenyan of that's currently living. So
yeah, true. But a shout out to Benson Kipruto too, because he's just he's like that was his third major win, and he is not mentioned in the same respectful manner in which Kipton was or Kipchoge is. Yet that was his third win, and 2:02.16 is not shabby at Tokyo. So
it's a good time. That's was it Boston, London, and Tokyo now? I think it is. Is these three majors?
Boston in 21, Chicago 22, and Tokyo 24.
Yeah.
So.
Excellent. And I guess we also had some female runners in there as well. Now, Tony, how devastated were you with your favourite? She came in fourth. Still an amazing effort, but we had Sutme Bed. She came in with a course record for the females, and that was at 2:15.55. We had Rosemary Winjaru. She came in at 2:16.14. And Amain Shenkuli, thank you, at 2:16.58. So the girls were quite close together. Sifan came in at 2:18.05. So she was like only a minute and a bit after the third place. But yeah, fourth place, which was a bit of a surprise there.
Yeah, it was, and once again, I haven't watched too much of the race, but it just seemed that she'd settled in behind the pace setters in the female race. From what I can understand, as we know, Sifan is a bit naive on strategy, and she's made mistakes in both London and Chicago that she's run, and she was able to still make those mistakes and still make it happen. I think strategically she's still got obviously a little bit to learn because she missed a bottle again at 25K, went back and got it. And, whereas that was, when you're running the paces that they are, if you give someone a minute or 30 seconds, and that's a big chunk of time to catch up. And I just think, her body, from what she was saying after the event, she felt good. The weather was great. It just wasn't her day. But I just think strategically, she still just makes some of those little errors. And, for the first time in her third marathon, it actually cost her dearly. So, Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what she now does in the Olympics, whether she does a mixed program of track and marathon or whether she just focuses on track. So
yeah, I haven't heard much. It's actually everything's been focused on Kipchoge. That Sifan's sort of gone through under the radar in the media a lot, and haven't heard too much about it. I haven't watched her race or anything like that, but it seems a bit odd. But as you say, it is probably a bit of that naivety, and it's probably also, she probably hasn't had a bad day running a marathon yet, and this is probably one of those things, and we've talked about that in the past with Kelvin Kiptum. He ran 3 marathons, but hadn't really had a bad day, hadn't really been tested on the bad days. And what we do know is Kipchoge's had bad days and then come back and won and set world records and all sorts of things
and
afterwards.
he still finishes on those bad days.
And he still finishes.
Kipchoge will always finish his marathon. A lot of marathon runners will actually, especially the professionals, will sit there and go, if I'm not going to win it, I'll just pull out now and I won't even bother keep completing it. Whereas Kipchoge will pull back and he'll happily come, or maybe not happily, but he will come 10th rather than just pull out altogether and do a DNF. So we've seen it at Boston now, we've seen it in Tokyo. He doesn't have to be first. He will always finish.
He's done it in Tokyo before as well, where he stepped off the course in Tokyo probably 5-6 years ago, 7 years ago.
Oh, well, yeah. So let's talk about the interesting thing that we're actually here to talk about. Let's talk about yours and Sharon's run.
Yeah. We had what I would consider just... I had a good day and Sharon didn't have quite as good a day. That's the best way that I can put it.
How did you find the corrals to start with, I guess? Because
we'll start at the beginning.
They were very interesting for us.
Yeah, let's start at the beginning.
It was we were in the OK Corral, which is now what we should call every race that has a K Corral, the OK Corral. And it was I thought ultimately there was a lot of nervous people around things like not being able to bring in water bottles and all this sort of stuff. And I don't necessarily get the stress that people have with carrying their own water bottle. There's water always on the course. There's always an electrolyte drink. So I sort of get a bit nonplussed about people that create their own stress around that. But I thought this start was really well organized. We got through security really easily. I had the only thing I was a bit nervous on, as you know, I like my pickle juice to cater if I get cramps. And I had a couple of small bottles on me just in the pockets of my running tights, and no dramas getting them through. Lots of toilets as soon as you walked into gate 2, I think it was, we went through. The men's urinal toilets are every marathon should have them, and I found them interesting. There's no doors on the men's urinal, so all you see is this row of blokes that all with their backs to you. So yeah, the toilet situation at the start was good.
Western and Eastern toilets too, squat toilets and proper seat toilets.
I didn't look that close, and then when we got towards Corral K, there was Corral, I think, F in front of us, and then K was there, and then they had G off down a side road. So I think that's the way it worked. So I walked in, and they've got their starters, their people stopping people from going into the wrong corral, but they had the toilets there. So a tip for everyone is, especially if you are in the OK Corral, because you had to walk to the back of the corral to enter the corral, or you could go to the set of toilets that were sitting there between the F and the K, use them, and then that fed you into the start of the K Corral. So we were able to start, probably 10 rows off the front because of that. So a nice little tip. We crossed the start line at 9:31. So the minute we did that, I just relaxed and just knew that the cutoffs were not going to be an issue for us. The crowds, I'll go to the weather first. The weather was quite cool in the beginning, and I think it was like in the single digits below 5 degrees.
Yep.
So it was a bit cold. There were designated areas where you could throw your clothing, of course, but most people just didn't, so, or weren't sure where they were, so they just dropped them where they could. Crowds, I've never ran in a race that was so crowded, and that sounds really weird when you run, or this was the last major, but the race was just, if there's one thing that stands out for me, was the crowd. Just, you know how normally after about 10K you get some space, and we didn't. It was crowded the whole way, and even our finish line shots in the photos, you can normally get a section where you can get by yourself at the finish line. All our finish line shots, there's 100 people there, and you go, okay, so I've never. It's a very crowded event, and that's the rolling start. Weather was good. Fueling, I thought the first drink station was just after 5K, and that was bedlam. But the rest were pretty well organised, I think. So fueling strategy worked. So the start line was okay. And the interesting thing, right? I was prepared for the out and backs. And I still remember our friend from the Long Run podcast, Hayden, talking through that he thought Tokyo was a bludger, of course. I thought it was okay. I thought it was great. The roads were great. I very clearly remember Tim saying he's never run on bitumen so smooth, and I've got to agree 100%. The best roads of any of the majors. And the out and backs were fine. And because you were ready for them, and you always had people that you were looking out for. And interestingly, Hayden on his social media popped in a memory from when they ran Tokyo last year, him and his wife, and they saw each other on the out and back, and they stopped for a quick married kiss and then continued on. And so I put in the comments, as I'm not sure I'm commenting, so there is a benefit to the out and backs. And of course, he responded back to that as well. Yes, there is. So, but I found the out and backs were fine. Yeah, so.
I like them because when we did it, you could see traveling pit people going in the opposite direction and cheer them on. So you sort of had an internal cheer squad going. So they'd cheer you on and you'd cheer them on as you went past each other. Was that the same this year?
100%. And because of where a lot of us started in that K crowd, there was a lot of people around us that were traveling fit. So sometimes
we watched.
So some people would first surge ahead and then they'd drop back and whatnot. So at the start line, I thought toilets were pretty cool. During the race, there were still some sections where they had porta potties on the race, on the course itself. But as you mentioned, most of them were in public toilets or railway stations or what have you. And the officials were really good because they'd hold a sign up saying 20-minute wait. And I'm thinking to myself, why would you wait 20 minutes? If you can hold it, you know? So, I'm still really quite surprised about how good I felt on the start line, and how the ankle just held up. Like I just still feel really amazed that I was able to basically fracture the ankle and then run a marathon just 16 weeks or something later. So that just does my head in that I was able to do that. So
I told you it'd be right on the day. I told you it'd be right.
And I knew, and once again, we just hit our marks. And as you know, we try and do first 2 hours, 16. We try and get to 4 hours and have that 30. On Strava, we actually came in at 3:53 for the 30K. And once again, that just gives you options. And it gave us an option because Sharon cramped up really badly at about 6K to go. We're in line for about a 5:30. Just doing the sums in my head. But she was basically in tears for the last 5 kilometers. She was in that much pain. So, and of course, me being me was pushing her and, come on, let's go, we can do this. And that last kilometer stretch on the cobblestones, it's I said, come on, last kilometer of the major. And anyway, needless to say, that was the only time she swore. And and there were some choice words that were said, and I sort of realized, okay, pull my head in and let's just get through this. And, to come just 20 seconds outside of our Chicago time, I was pretty stoked with, and I know Sharon is as well. And but she cried when we crossed the finish line. It wasn't through emotion of getting the 6 star; it was just sheer pain. So yeah, and hence the reason why she's now saying maybe we should be not thinking about Gold Coast as the marathon, but who knows where we've got to sit. She's got some appointments in the coming weeks to find out what's going wrong with her. I think she's got a stress fracture potentially on the shin, which is but yeah, outside of that, just a great day crossing that finish line. We ran into the Brick Man, as we mentioned, and he's done the 6 stars. Last year was I think he got his 6 star in London, but now his wife's doing it, so they ran Tokyo together. I thought that was really cool. So yeah, it was just a great day, very emotional, and just glad it's over in so many ways, but sad it's over, because one of the things also that because there were 18 people in Travelling Fit. Let me just get my stats here. 18 runners completing their 6 stars, and every runner at Travelling Fit, I think there was 120 odd runners. Everyone completed. 18 of them were doing their 6 stars, and of course they all got it. 7 of the people there had done all the races through Travelling Fit, so that was pretty powerful as well. So it was just a good. It was good. So, and
so there they are. There, yay! So a couple of things. One of the things we noted when we were there is the water stations, and I'm not sure if they fixed it this year, but on your bib you get a ranking of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and you're meant to go to that table to get your drink. Did everyone stuff that up from the very beginning? Firstly. Yeah. And secondly, was there enough water for you guys towards the end? Because we found last year that there were certain drink stations that didn't have any water in them by the time we got there.
And we were 5 hours 20, I think, for Tokyo.
Yeah. There was plenty of water. So first couple were bedlam. I think, and you see this a lot in the majors. You do a 5K, the drink stations normally kick in after about 5Ks. And, we train for that. So we do our compass runs, as you know. So we'll do a 5K loop, get a drink, 5K loop, et cetera, et cetera. So we train for that. So it's nothing out of the ordinary for us to run 5Ks without water or nutrition. But the first one was just sheer bedlam, and everyone just channeled into. Everyone knew about the numbers, of course, and but I don't know if they were as well signposted as what they could have been. But you didn't really get a lot of advance notice that you're coming up to a drink station. All of a sudden, there was a drink station there. The stations themselves were very spread out. So 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 6, 7 to 8, those sorts of things. But towards the end of the race, you would see that they were packing up the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s, or they were empty, but then there was always plenty of water on the latter ones. So there was not an issue there with people running out of Pocari Sweat or water. And can I just say, Pocari Sweat is probably the least offensive electrolyte drink in the market, and you could drink that no worries all the way through. Whereas, I remember London, if someone threw another orange bloody Lucozade at me, I would have punched them, because by about the 25K, you're sick of the taste, and then you've got lemon and lime and in some of the other ones, and
And your feet are still sticky from it, I'm sure of it. I can still hear the crunching stickiness of it.
Yeah. So whereas with Picari Sweat was not a drama. So that's one thing that they certainly did well. So there was, of course, there's always sad stories in relation to the sweepers. And it was interesting, as I think Tara mentioned, that we would get a really good idea of where the sweepers were with the out and backs. And we certainly did. And the buses. And that 34K one was the one that we were really gunning for. And we, like, when I look at the times that we did, and we crossed the finish line at 3:15. So what's that? 55 minutes before the 4:10 deadline, and we were just picking up time the whole way through. So for us, the deadlines were never an issue. I think that first one, I think we had the 11K one, we had 20 minutes up our sleeves. So, and it was just good to have them in the bank early and just continue on. But there were some really sad stories, and you can see there were parts of the out and back, and people are just walking, and there's like the buses are just almost right behind them, and you're just thinking, run, run. And you're trying to encourage them. And there are a number of 6 stars that didn't get their 6 stars because they were swept. And there was a couple. There was what's the last sweep? Is it the 38? Was
something like that? Yeah, it's as after the top turnaround, just before you come back. So yeah, it'd be about 37 or 38.
Yeah, 38, and people were swept then. I've still got it on the back of my phone that I ran with. Let me go here. The 38 at 3:15, and there were people swept at that. And I'm just thinking, how can you let that happen? Because the 34 was the tough one, and you could almost skip or jump one-legged all the way to the finish line after you've done the 34K, in my mind. But anyway, there were people swept, and it's that's always going to be the case. The cutoffs are never going to change.
The rules.
You've got to train for them. That's it. You've got to train for them. But one thing on that, and this is Robert Wang's group on Facebook, and I know that we've got some potentially exciting news happening very soon in relation to some people in that particular group. But he's a legend because he paced people who are worried about the cutoffs, and he was messaging them during the race and saying, okay, now you've got to do a 13-minute mile for the next cutoff. And he does that voluntary, and like, who else does that? That's just amazing. and there were just so many posts of gratitude on that World Abbott's Challenge group that he has on Facebook. Why would you be in any other group? Because he just provides so much information and does it with grace, and it's just amazing. So so, cutoffs, no dramas.
So we had some others on the tour that we know. So Kim and Steve.
Kim and Steve were on there as well, and we had Mark and Kylie. They weren't doing their 6 stars, but I think that was their 5th star, and they were around you guys as well. We're watching them going around, but I know that Kim and Steve have both completed their 6 stars with you guys. Kim did her marathon at Tokyo in 3 hours 54. Steve did his in 5:37, so just before you guys, because you guys both did it in 5 hours and 45 minutes and 25 seconds. Now that is fantastic. Now that is like a good 15 to 20 minutes faster than Boston, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think I tell everyone who listens that I learned so much out of Boston, just about what to do and what not to do. And it's no surprise to me that the last 3, I've just hit the line. I've gone on that starting line really confident, really fresh, really understanding what my body can do, really understanding the milestones that I want to hit. And yeah, I just the last three have been exceptional. It's been great to do them with Sharon, of course, but yeah, it's just you got to learn your lessons. You
Absolutely.
when things don't go well, you've got to understand why. And I had a real phobia at Boston around using the toilets, and because there's nothing worse than American porta potties, can I tell you? But just because you don't want to go doesn't mean that you should probably not drink or hydrate before a marathon. And so you've got to put that to one side and say what's in your best interest. So just the preparation has been so much better. So
you've definitely improved with each marathon too. So like New York was 6:31. That was your first marathon of all and your first major. Then you were getting quicker and quicker. So London, you've got 6 hours. Boston, 6:05. But look, we'll give that to you for the hills and the weather. Berlin was 5:58. Chicago was 5:45:02. And Tokyo 5:45:24.
25. Sorry.
Oh, 25. Sorry. So that's impressive work to keep so
Getting
consistently running.
And can I tell you that we, like when we did New York, we never thought, we didn't think about the 6 stars. We just thought about enjoying it. And as I went into that race really injured. I torn calves and floating patella on the knee. So to do 6:31 was a major effort. So for both of us to finish, but we're doing New York again this year because the people we know are getting their 6 stars. And I've already said to Sharon, let's try and do 5:31 and let's try and beat New York by an hour. And we'll still have fun. But the interesting thing is I think both Chicago, well, for me, I think Berlin, Chicago, Tokyo were all potential 5:30s. But, for reasons we know of, we just held back and had to in some cases and just did for Chicago. We just did. We slowed down. So I think there's a little bit more in us, but yeah, I'm quite happy with those times. So
in all honesty, Tony, you've completed your 6 stars, which is an amazing feat. It doesn't matter about your times that you've done it in.
Yeah.
But I do want to say to everybody that's listening that your total journey time for all 6 marathons is 36 hours and 7 minutes and 29 seconds. Now, that is an awful lot of running.
Yeah.
Not only just for the marathon, but the training that leads up to that.
We've got our value worth, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't matter how you got there, you've done it. And you should be ultimately just so proud of you and Sharon for all those tough times, all those tough training runs. That's what people don't realize is what you go through to get a piece of bling. It is an amazing achievement, and I'm sure that, well, I know Tim and I are very, very proud of you both, and I'm sure all of our listeners are too. So very impressed.
And do you want to mention the other news?
What's the other news?
About Sharon?
Oh, well, Sharon actually has got a better time than you, sorry to tell you, Tony. Even though you both finished at the same times, she's actually got a 2-second overall better time for the whole entire.
And 4 seconds, she 4 seconds was she was faster in New York by 4 seconds. So over the course of the other 5, I managed to pick up 2 seconds. But at the end of the day, that deservedly so. She dragged me through New York. She dragged me through Boston. So I'm quite happy the fact that Sharon can say that she completed the 6 majors 2 seconds faster. But can I just say, I reckon we might be the first married couple in Australia to have run the world majors side by side to complete. Now, that's just a preliminary look at from the stats, and it is something I'm going to send a little note to Abbott's just to see if they've got that as a bit of a category. But I reckon we might be the first married couple to have run the majors side by side, and for Australia anyway.
That's impressive.
Yes, and sometimes while it can be a little bit frustrating, and I know Tim gets a bit frustrated at times, because when you make a commitment to run with someone, you make that commitment to run with someone. And as I've often said, you've got to rely on not just yourself feeling good, but the other person feeling good. But you know, the commitment to run together, that would be a nice little thing. So I'm not sure if it's true, because that's just preliminary with people having the last names. And yes, there are married couples that have done the majors, but they haven't run it together. You can tell by their time. So yeah, that'll be something that I'll ask Abbott's and see if it's a category that they actually check and see what it's like.
Absolutely. You have to let us know if we're going to be the second couple. So, yes. Now, beyond the marathon, how was traveling fit? Awesome as usual, I'm assuming.
Yeah, well, before I do that, right, before we talk about traveling fit, I have done some stats on how it all worked out, right? So let me just share with you. Prior to Tokyo, there were 353 Australians who had done the 6 stars, and there were 66 in the 5-star category who needed Tokyo, right? So worst to complete their 6 stars. So worst case scenario, there was going to be at the end of Tokyo 419 roughly people with 6 stars. Now the reality is slightly different. There were 33 people that achieved, Aussies, who achieved their 6-star status at Tokyo. Congratulations to all 33. And as I mentioned, 18 of them were in our tour group. So I think that that's just an amazing kudo to the team at Travelling Fit. 18 of the 33 Aussies completed their 6 stars. Now, what that means now is that the number of Aussies at the moment prior to Boston, and this could change because, you know, there is some still figured numbers being added in, but currently on the 6-star Hall of Fame on Abbott's, there's 386 Australians that have done the 6-star. Okay, I had predicted that out of the 66 needing Tokyo, I predicted possibly that there would be 20 no-shows. So I was looking at about 46. And I predicted that Sharon and I would be 398 and 399, right, in total.
Yep.
Now, needless to say, that was wrong, because I am proud to say that I'm the 386th Aussie to be awarded the gold star, the 6-star. And because Sharon beat me over the 6 by 2 seconds, she is the 385th person, Aussie. Now, Stephen Tudgman, 384. So, Steve, you are number 384, and Kim Tudgman is number 372.
Yeah.
So, when you look at it from a male perspective, there's now 227 male Aussies that have done the 6-star, and I'm number 227, and Steve's number 226. And when you look at the females, there is 159 females. Sharon is 159, and Kim is 153. So congratulations to all the 18 or from Travelling Fit and the 33 people that completed their 6 stars at Tokyo. So, yeah, so I'm going to get some embroidery on some shirts now because I'm 386. So
there you go. That is a fantastic effort, and as we say, only 1% of the population, or less than 1% of the population, can run a marathon, less than probably 1% of all the marathoners in the world have got a 6-star medal. So you're in the 0.001% or something like that of people in the world that have got one of those medals around their neck.
It's pretty amazing.
So, pretty amazing. And as Tara said, that little bit of bling around your neck represents hundreds and hundreds of hours.
Yeah.
Getting up, going for a run, doing the physio, doing the rehab, doing the all the good, the bad, and the ugly, all is represented in that one medal.
And just with anyone doing their 6 stars, in your bib packet, you get the back bib that tells everyone that you're going for your 6-star. Highly recommended that you put it on. So my wife didn't put hers on. I put mine on, and by about the 20K mark, she was saying, "I wish I'd just put a me too on the back of my shirt," because we were getting that many people just say, and so many 6 stars, 2,600 in the race. Of course, you're going to see a lot more, and especially you guys in New York, if the numbers are like they were last year, you're going to be a rare breed out there. And I would have that on the back, and the amount of support and encouragement that you get through it is incredible. So so 100%. I don't think
I was just going to say 100%. We're going to put it on. I'm going to put it on for sure. I've earned it. That's one of the things I'm actually looking forward to, is putting that on my back.
Yeah, 100%. Do it.
Excellent. So traveling fit was all good for you guys again, as usual? Yeah.
Great group. We had so many people that we caught up with again. Carol Adams was there. She did her 5th star. She's got New York. She'll be doing her 6th star in New York. Simon, who was, I think he did Berlin and Chicago last year.
Yeah, with his wife and daughter.
Judy.
Yeah,
Judy.
They were both there.
Yep.
I think he was saying he's done Tokyo for 3 or 4 times now or something. Andrew and
Lisa
Lehman were there. It was just a really good group. The IMP crew were great, so I certainly want to have another chat with them. They all did great times. I was all part of the team that were COVID affected, and this was their first international marathon. So it was just a really good, positive crew. The friendship run on the Saturday was okay. I won't say it was outstanding. It was a bit of a hike to get there. And there was a lot of cultural activities that were really they were put on, but not many runners participated in them. So I'm sure that the Japanese were quite disappointed with that, but they weren't overly promoted as to what you would be doing there. So a lot of people just did their 5K run and went. And then after the marathon, of course, celebration dinner at Tokyo was a complete waste of time and effort and money. So, through no defaults necessarily of anyone, but our bus it took over an hour and 15 for us to get there it was supposed to be a half-hour trip. And that just put everything under pressure. And then it was just not. I took your advice once again. We went straight to the second floor. Didn't worry about first floor. I just thought,
very loud, confusing, and noisy.
Yeah, and it would have been so much better for just to do a private celebration, which is what we normally do with Traveling Fit. So whether they're contractually obligated to take people to that. Yeah, but it was in hindsight, we really could have just stayed at the rooftop bar and just really enjoyed ourselves. So, but anyway, but afterwards we went to Fuji. Of course, you always go to Fuji. Mind you, it was snowing the day we went, so we couldn't get to Fuji. Kyoto, we went to. We did some sightseeing around Tokyo and spent our last couple of days in Osaka before flying home. So just a really nice family trip afterwards. Tokyo is an amazing space. I love it. And I don't know whether we'll be going back anytime soon, but it's always just, people are wonderful. The place is so clean. relatively efficient. One of the funny things is you hear all these American runners after they've left Tokyo then bemoaning the fact that they've landed in New York and there's rubbish everywhere, and if only our cities could look like this. And I thought to myself, well, you need rules, right?
And you need to follow those rules.
And respect
and you need to follow the but yeah, I mean, Tokyo is just an amazing city that's just efficient, and it was just a great holiday. Started well, of course, with the 6-star, and then just spent some wonderful time with the family. So it was awesome.
Excellent. I'm so glad to hear it went so well for you, Tony, for both you and Sharon, and everyone else, which is great. I guess we'll do your tip, Tim, as always, before we finish up.
All right. Thanks, Tara. It says thanks, Tony. I forgot to put Tara's name on there. So my tip this week's a simple one, but it's one that's often overlooked by runners. It's about stretching. So regular stretching will help prevent injury. It's a no-brainer, but it's one that we typically don't do. Stretching before and also after a run will help loosen up your muscles, help get them prepared and ready for the run ahead, but also after the run to help them cool down properly. And in turn, as a result of stretching, it will lead to improved running and obviously post-race or post-run recovery. Stretching regularly will minimize the risks of injury and will help maintain form when you're running. So being able to keep your legs limber and getting the gunk out of the legs by stretching will help your form be maintained. So I guess we've always said this in the past, if you are doing any sort of strength or conditioning, or in this case stretching, you need to focus on the key areas: back, hamstrings, quads and calves, and glutes. And if you're stretching those out, you will end up with an improved performance both in your training and then obviously in your race days. So that's my tip this week. Get into stretching if you're not already stretching.
Excellent. Thanks, Tim.
Great tip.
So this episode is about to end, but we're going to hand it over to you, Tony, if it's all right to talk about next week.
Hey, this is huge, isn't it? And full credit to Tim for getting this organised. And we've got a couple of really good special guests coming up that we're working on. And some of them are in limbo, but this one's confirmed and it's really huge. Our special guest next week will be none other than the one and only Robert Wang himself from the World Majors Challenge group, I think it's called. He's well known via pages and the World Majors Marathon Facebook group. And he also dives into things like Run Disney, etc., etc. I am so excited to sit down with Robert and have our conversation. I'm sure I've met him. I'm just positive I've met him. And I'm sure it was Boston last year. And but who knows? We sit down with him next week and chat about how he got into running, as well as how he got into being one of the best resources out there for people trying to run the majors. So it's definitely going to be an episode not to miss. So should be awesome.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Tony. So that wraps up this week's episode. Video of this episode will be available at Spotify and YouTube, and audio will be available on Apple and Amazon and most other popular podcast platforms. If you like this episode, please like it, write a comment, send some encouragement or some congratulations to Tony and Sharon for their massive 6-star achievement. And remember, every step forward is a victory. Lace up, hit the road, and we'll catch you on the next episode of The Flying RuNR. Until then, happy running.
Happy running. Well done,
Happy
Tony.
running.
See you. Jingle. Well done, Tony.
Yeah.